Alright, now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, Ed O'Mara, the most handsome man on the face of the earth. Thank you, by the way. Didn't you just make a video about how bourbon is gross and scotch is great? And now you're making one about having to pretend to like scotch? What gives, man? Well, my inquisitive and somewhat wordy companions, it's clear that that last video was just a ploy to get the snobby Scotch hounds off my trail. After all, I am a true, red-blooded American who loves apple pie, freedom, and bourbon more than life itself. But it seems there are some people who apparently like their whiskey to taste like Swamp Thing took a giant dump in the middle of a plastics factory. And goddammit, they are some of the most pretentious, annoying motherfuckers to have to deal with. So without further ado, the Rot Gut Review presents
How to Pretend to Like Scotch. The truth is that the entire Scotch whiskey industry is built on lies. No one actually enjoys Scotch. People drink Scotch because masculine, debonair anti-heroes drink it in the movies, and so folks think it'll make them look just as cool and sophisticated. Drinking Scotch isn't about the taste, the smell, having a good time, or even getting nice and shit-faced. Drinking Scotch is about letting everyone in the room know that you're better than them, because you consume beverages that cost more than a used car, but taste like a dog threw up in a puddle of its own urine.
If you're gonna rub shoulders with the kind of conceited jagoffs who obsess over Scotch, you're gonna need to know a few tricks to convince them you're just as stuck up as they are. The first step is to never, ever shut the fuck up about how much you love single malt. I only drink single malt Scotch. I truly believe that every whiskey should only be made out of malted barley. Mostly because I'm a boring old shit who's terrified of innovation.
Even more importantly, you should be quick to shit on drinkers who prefer any other type of whiskey.
Blended Scotch. I suppose that's a fine option. If you're homeless. You're drinking Irish whiskey? Do you want a potato with that? Canadian?
Also, be sure to call your drink a dram as often as possible. For some reason, Scotch drinkers love sounding like they're from the mid-1800s.
Would you like a dram of Glenflappable 15? Nothing like a wee dram in the evening. Dram, dramedy dram, dramedy dram. Now that you've managed to ingratiate yourself with the Scotch-swilling braggarts, you may need to actually drink some and talk about what it tastes like. This is actually incredibly easy for one simple reason. Since Scotch naturally tastes like weed killer, Scotch distilleries age it in casks that used to hold something that actually tasted good. This makes it halfway palatable and gives us a nice little handy shortcut for our tasting notes.
Just take a quick look at the bottle to see what barrel the Scotch was aged in, such as sherry, port, rum, Madeira, or, oh, hey, look at that, bourbon. Then just talk about how it tastes like that particular thing, but without overwhelming the distillery character. Distillery character is a term Scotch drinkers made up so they don't feel bad that their liquor has to steal other spirits' flavors to not be complete cow shit. If the bottle doesn't say it was finished in another kind of spirits barrels, just talk about the nutty malt forwardness and how you appreciate a naked malt that doesn't need finishing, even though every single one clearly does.
Discussing heavily peated whiskey is even easier. Just get a whiff of it and say whatever nasty ass shit comes to mind. Those demented freaks will love it. This tastes like a mud hole filled with used bandages. It has notes of a pile of corpses that were set ablaze next to another pile of rotting fish that are also on fire. It reminds me of a mix of asphalt and fresh rat shit.
Scotch quote-unquote connoisseurs are also crazy particular about putting very specific water into their whiskey. So make sure to talk about how precious and stupidly exclusive the water you add to your whiskey is.
Do you ever add water to your whiskey?
The only water I add to my scotch was drawn directly from the River Spey by a virgin and then filtered through a belted plaid.
I have a set of crystal water droppers made by 6th-generation craftsmen in Edinburgh. I use each one exactly once and then throw it at a poor person.
Now the final step is to really wow those haughty assholes. Easiest way to do that? Talk about drinking decades-old scotch or a scotch from closed-down distilleries. This works because scotch drinkers really love jacking off to age statements and rarity. And there are so many closed-down distilleries, I think there's probably more closed ones than there are open ones right now. You could have conceivably had them.
You don't even have to know any actual scotch distilleries. Just add Glen or Mac to something vaguely Gaelic sounding and a big number, such as Glencallico 30, McAvenue 92, or Glen Macintosh Computer 3000.
Of course, my favorite dram is Glen Botraco Miomaki 45.734. They've been mothballed since World War I. The best part is, they'll never correct you. These Scotch pricks are so worried about looking smart, they'll pretend they know exactly what distillery you're talking about.
You're so full of shit.
But if all else fails and they catch on to you, just try to get pissed on as much free fancy booze as you can before they throw your ass out. I'm William Wallace! Freedom! And there you go. A guide to pretending scotch isn't the grossest thing in the world. Now, today, there's more whiskey made outside of Scotland than at any other point in history, so you may never actually have to drink it. Also, if you can avoid talking to the tech bro douchebags and the bougie old men at your local whiskey bar, you may never actually have to put this guide into practice. But, if you do, in an emergency, you now have the tools to escape unscathed. So until next time, I'm Ed O'Mara. This is the Rock Gut Review. Stay safe, stay tuned, and stay rotten.